Today, our topic is nutrition and digestive health. Our guest is Dr. Garrett Smith, also known as the nutrition detective, and is the world's leading expert on vitamin A toxicity and detoxification. He has the ability to explain to you why certain things make you feel better, why certain things make you feel worse, and what you should be doing to improve your health. Along with the health paradigm shifting toxic bile theory, Dr. Smith specializes in applying science, logic, and practical approaches to topics like detoxification and nutrition, while making challenging concepts understandable for the layperson. He hosts the weekly Love Your Liver live stream on YouTube and is the creator of the Do-It-Yourself Health Recovery Love Your Liver program. Welcome to our show, Garrett.
Thank you for having me. It's always great to be on and spread the word.
Yes, indeed. A lot of people seem to be having gut and digestive issues, from constipation to heartburn, diarrhea. The whole issue of obesity plays a role. Now, where should people start in improving their gut health?
Well, that's a big question. Okay. So, one of the ideas, I can just go right into kind of the major ideas. I mean, the things that are touching your gut are what determines your gut health, right? So one of the analogies I use a lot, since we're focusing on the gut today, an analogy I use a lot is, I call it the garden analogy. And so if you think of the inside of your gut as a garden, like the tissue is the soil, and then your gut biome is what you're trying to grow. And so a lot of people, it is known in gardening, right, that if you have the wrong things, if things are not growing the way that you want, the soil is not right. And what determines the soil? Well, it's what you put on it, it's what you put in it, or it's what you take out of it. So the goal then would be to fix the soil. Now, what a lot of people are doing is they're trying to put toxic things on their soil, whether it is pharmaceuticals, whether it's bad foods that they think are good for them, whether it's herbs and other things that they don't necessarily need, but they're trying to force their garden to do something, right? You could do synthetic fertilizers, not necessarily making your garden healthier, but it might help things to grow a little bit, but then you have to keep doing it, which is their whole goal. So anyway, what we try to do, if we are the idea of trying to get your gut to do the right things, this fits right into what I call toxic bile theory, which is in the whole big paradigm of health that I do. But we are trying to stop putting toxic things on the gut, which is mainly what you eat and consume, whether that's through your skin, through your mouth, or wherever, or even people, doing things like enemas, putting things up your rear end. Whatever you're applying to your gut, we want to make sure that that is helpful. And then we're trying to facilitate the removal of toxic things. Like if you could clean the soil out, that's what we want to do. And then we want to put the nutrients into the soil that it needs to function. So this is kind of what we do in all areas of health. We don't put poisons in, get the poisons that are stored there out, and then give the body what it needs to do what it is designed to do if it has those things. And that's right. It sounds basic, right?
Yeah.
But people aren't doing this. So
yeah, it sounds like a great analogy. So where do people start in choosing the right foods? So
okay.
we know this is a very ideological debate. You have the absolute vegetarians, you have the vegans and whatever.
Yeah. So this is kind of a funny thing, and this is part of this is how I got to where I am today. Is I've experimented with many different diets. I've vegetarian and paleo, and I never went full carnivore, but I did most of the big low carb, and I did most of the big things out there. And the funny thing is now in the health and nutrition world, people hadn't been able to figure out what is the real problem that they're actually trying to fix. Some people would think carbs are bad and meat is bad and this is bad and this is bad. And they just find different things, and then they create generally an extreme diet around it. And I joked years ago that what this was eventually going to come to is people are going, they don't know what to eat and they're eating the wrong things and they keep getting problems. So what is the end point of that? It's fasting. It's not eating.
Mm.
Everybody's so confused that they don't know what to eat. And then you get people who go to the grocery store and they look around and they go, what, with all these things that they've been told are toxic in their head, there's nothing left for them to eat. I've had people text me, be like, I'm at the grocery store. I don't know what to eat. And I said, well, I didn't cause you that problem. You caused that problem with all the junk that you learned before. So anyway, one of the biggest things that I deal with on a daily basis. So it makes sense to people that this should make sense. If you were eating something that was toxic to you and you were trying to eat more of it because you thought it was good for you, that would be the sneakiest and the worst thing that you could do, right? You're stealthily poisoning yourself in what you think is the name of health. Okay. So then we get into the reality and the biochemistry of what I consider to be only a toxin, and that is the compound called vitamin A. So I'm going to go all the way to the end of it. If you consume beta carotene in plants, if you consume beta carotene in supplements, if you consume vitamin A in animal-based foods, whether that's dairy or egg yolks or liver or whatever, if you are consuming vitamin A, what it turns into, the normal detoxification process of it, is it turns into a thing called retinoic acid. Retinoic acid, and I can show you this. I can show you that if people eat fruits and vegetables with beta carotene in it, retinoic acid levels rise in their urine and in their blood. I can show people that if they take, animal-based vitamin A foods, retinoic acid levels rise. I can show people that if, they think that, so most people are familiar with retinoic acid as being Accutane or Retin-A or things of this nature. Well, I can show you in the research that normal people who are not on those medications, who regularly consume vitamin A, will show up with retinoic acid in their blood and in their urine.
What does that do to your health?
Yes. Well, since we're talking about gut health, I specifically wanted to go over things like leaky gut. So, because that's a big topic, right? Some people will be like, leaky gut is the cause of all health problems. And I go, it's, when you understand what I'm about to say, then it does tie in.
Yeah. Can you just explain leaky gut for our listeners?
Well, leaky gut is an idea that there are things kind of attacking or dissolving or weakening the what are called tight junctions between cells in your gut. So instead of them being tight and preventing things like certain proteins that are normally supposed to be too big from going into your bloodstream, things are leaking through your blood, through your digestive lining into your bloodstream.
Okay, got it.
That is leaky gut.
Okay.
A lot of people talk about leaky gut and they'll say it's connected to all your health conditions, especially allergies and all these other things of toxins getting into your blood. Okay. So here's where we get into, but people will talk about what they think causes leaky gut, and they'll say something like gluten does. Well, gluten is just a protein from wheat. We don't usually hear about proteins like directly dissolving and, burning holes through things. That's not what proteins do. We'll get into what gluten does in terms of bile and leaky gut in a second. So let's go over retinoic acid, though. So let's say there's lots of people out there who have been misled into thinking that vitamin A is necessary and good for them. I do not believe this to be true, and we fix gut problems every day.
So just to understand this, they get vitamin A from certain foods, like?
I could run through the quick food list of the highest vitamin A foods in the plant realm. And vitamin A is not the only thing we work on in my program, but it is the easiest place to start for most people. So in plant foods, it would tend to be the part, you got to understand this, the part of the plant that is red or yellow or orange or dark green. Okay, those parts of the plant. So like an example would be an okay thing, as we'll get into, would be like a banana where the skin is yellow. We don't eat that. We eat the inside, which is whitish. So of plant foods, generally the things that have the highest vitamin A, the part of the plant that you eat that is red or yellow or orange or dark green. So what are the better colors to eat if you are trying to minimize or reduce your vitamin A consumption? You cannot eat zero vitamin A. Don't even try. You can reduce it, but you cannot eat zero of it. The colors we prefer of the part that you eat is white, off-white, light green.
Okay.
So that's the plant world. So like our favorite fruits, bananas, apples, like green grapes, and pears. Now, the funny thing is, if you really look in the literature about what the healthiest foods for people are, or the healthiest fruits in the literature, it goes apples, bananas, pears. So, and all the parts of those that you're eating is generally like the majority of it is whitish. And then green grapes are obviously a little bit different. So we have that. And then in animal food realm, we are looking at dairy of all types, egg yolks specifically, they're yellow, right? We have organ meats, liver, kidneys, that kind of stuff, and pork. So those are the big vitamin A foods from the animal world. Once we start avoiding those and we're reducing the retinoic acid, well, let me get into retinoic acid real quick about what it does. First of all, most people know that Accutane is like one of the worst side effect medications that you can take. When you eat vitamin A, you do turn some of it into the exact same compound, 13-cis-retinoic acid, in your system. Okay. It's just destructive. You're going to get the same side effects. Don't fool yourself that these compounds are different. If chemists cannot tell the difference between the compounds, whether it comes from a natural food or a synthesized compound in a lab, if they can't tell the difference, if they use the same analysis process to find it in both, it is the same compound. So then we get into retinoic acid, the other retinoic acid, which is all trans retinoic acid. All trans retinoic acid is used in aesthetics for what is called a chemical peel. A yellow peel is what a retinoic acid peel is. They put this stuff on people's faces and it dissolves the upper layers of cells. In the literature, they have called it a controlled wound of the skin to then stimulate the lower levels of cells to come up and replace them. Okay? Mm-hmm. It dissolves the upper layers of skin. So now, if you were applying retinoic acid to your gut lining every day, what do you see could happen from that? You could be dissolving your gut lining. That is the cause of leaky gut.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So then we get into, so one of the ways that, this is the retinoic acid connection to like digestive problems. So then we get into toxic bile theory. I'm going to try to keep this relatively focused on gut stuff because it affects the entire body. So your liver, your major detox organ, the primary detox organ of your body. Like if your liver breaks, if you have liver failure, you're basically dead. Your liver is everything. Mm-hmm. Other things can break and we can kind of limp along, but if your liver breaks, you're done.
Mostly by consuming too much alcohol, for instance.
Well, here's a funny thing. Let's talk about that since you brought it up. Alcohol, right? That's the big thing they say not to do to ruin your liver.
Exactly. Yeah.
So ethanol, which is the alcohol compound, goes through the exact same detox pathways as retinol, which is vitamin A. They go through alcohol dehydrogenase and they go through aldehyde dehydrogenase. Ethanol goes through alcohol dehydrogenase to turn into acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde goes through aldehyde dehydrogenase to turn into acetic acid. Retinol goes through alcohol dehydrogenase to turn into retinaldehyde. So they're actually trying to claim that a vitamin is an aldehyde. Aldehydes are vitamins. Aldehydes are all toxic. You don't want any of them. And then retinaldehyde goes through aldehyde dehydrogenase to turn into retinoic acid. So we have a known toxin that goes through ethanol, right? I mean, nobody thinks ethanol is not good for you. The only research that ever shows that alcohol is good for people is heavily subsidized by the alcohol companies, right? This is a hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion industry around the world. They can pay scientists to whole cloth make up studies that say alcohol is good for you.
Yeah.
People don't realize there's no one regulating or anything what is in studies. Nobody goes back and checks up on these scientists or researchers to make sure that they're not lying through their teeth.
It's still the most common addiction is alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, I have a bit of research showing there's several papers showing that beta carotene, which is the main plant form of vitamin A, that turns into retinol. That I have research showing that beta carotene is as addictive as cigarettes. So we have the very thing that turns into retinol and retinaldehyde also technically being addictive. This is why a lot of people, if you're out there listening to me and you're going, there's no way vitamin A could be bad. This is the same defense that like a lot of alcoholics do. They go, there's no way this could be bad for me. I'm fine, right? The denial is great. So we have this alcohol problem ruining the liver. And then we have vitamin A going through the exact same detox pathway. So people are trying to say that we actually need vitamin A to go through the same detox pathway as alcohol to turn into retinoic acid. The science is trying to has claimed that retinoic acid, this chemical peel, is the active form of vitamin A that we need. So there are three main forms of retinoic acid in our bodies that are made from what we eat of vitamin A. There's 13-cis-retinoic acid, the exact same compound as Accutane. There is all-trans-retinoic acid, ATRA, which is exactly the same compound as retin-A or tretinoin. And then there's 9-cis-retinoic acid, also known as alitretinoin, which is really only used as a chemotherapy. So we have these compounds that are made in our body from vitamin A we eat that we know when they are given in pharmaceutical form are terribly toxic. We have misinformed health influencers out there saying that these are different because one's natural and one's not, even though chemists would not be able to tell the difference between them. We have people basically out there. Some people are even saying that vitamins, these psyops are coming hard and fast now because of what we've started. They're now trying to say that vitamins don't even exist. Like it's getting very strange out there. Like we've blown this whole thing open.
And the vitamin industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I mean, everyone's promoting.
Well, most of the basic vitamins are made by pharmaceutical subsidiaries over in China and India. Like they're pharma businesses. The pharmaceutical industry makes the vitamin industry. The Rockefellers started vitamin research. Merck is heavily involved in vitamins. Merck makes 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate and they promote it, and they're like limiting it. So it's crazy. Like Merck and the American Chemical Society and Merck just each other gave themselves like a little award show congratulating each other on all their vitamin science.
Well, the messaging is our food that we eat is no longer giving our bodies the nutrients that we need, and therefore we need supplements A, B, whatever.
What we need is the correct minerals in the food. That's the bigger start.
Okay, and where do we start with the correct minerals?
Oh boy, that's a big thing. So this gets into kind of philosophical stuff first. So if someone agrees that the food is depleted in what is supposed to be in there, we'll just leave it generally like that, whether they think it's vitamins or minerals or whatever, they think the food is depleted. Okay. So then we understand that they're behind the 8 ball. They're already all of us are already lacking. If somebody's not testing and they just assume they're fine on all their nutrients, well, if you're not testing, you're just guessing. Simple as that. So then we get into some people, well, they start detoxing. I'm sorry, let me back up. Let's say they're toxic, because pretty much everybody who's living in the modern, world is toxic in some way. So being toxic requires more nutrients to both detox you and to protect you from these toxins. Okay, so we already know they're deficient, they're behind the 8 ball, and now we assume that they are toxic, which requires more nutrients. So this is not a good combination already. Mm-hmm. Then we get into, let's say somebody decides they want to start working with me or doing other things, and they want to start pushing detox harder. They want to get better at detox. Just like if you wanted to get stronger, you go to the gym. So you want to go get better at detox and make this system run faster so you can fix your health. Detox requires even more nutrients. So we have that issue.
Yeah.
And then we get into, let's say you have people who are philosophically opposed to taking supplements of any type. We know the food is deficient. We now know that they're toxic, which requires more nutrients. We know that they're trying to start detoxing, which requires more nutrients. And then they absolutely will not take supplements to give themselves more of what they need. This is not leading towards a good situation. So what we do is we actually, I do and I teach practitioners too, and I'm about to have my first big seminar in terms of like what I teach in blood and hair testing. I do blood testing and hair testing. I do, 4 blood tests. That's all I do. We do a hair test. We look at the minerals that we know we can affect. And it's a very simple list. The minerals that I focus on in my practice, well, there's really 7 specific nutrients. There's, in the electrolytes, I just group them into two groups. Electrolytes, there is magnesium, which we typically do topically because topical magnesium absorbed through your skin raises your levels 10 times better than pills, in my opinion. Magnesium in food is it's next to impossible to get enough magnesium from food. So there's that. Sodium, salt, right? We do need a certain amount of salt. Mm-hmm. Some people underdo it. Some people nowadays, they're way overdoing it.
And
like you can overdo
depends
salt.
What kind of salt as well, doesn't it?
Well, this is another philosophical thing in that so if I want water, I want to drink water. I don't trust anything out there to be clean. So I want my water to be as clean as possible. So this typically means like I do distilled water or reverse osmosis water. I want it as clean. I would much rather err on the side of avoiding toxicity, avoiding purposely taking in toxicity with drinking water versus trying to get other things in like if I'm drinking water, I want water. That's what I'm drinking it for. I'm not drinking water for minerals. I'm drinking it for water. So when we get into salt, my view on salt is I want it to be as clean as possible. I'm going after sodium chloride. I'm not trying to get 72 trace minerals because if you look on the periodic table and you count out the first 72 minerals, not necessarily elements, but minerals, you very quickly get into radioactive minerals and you very quickly get into toxic minerals. I don't want 72 or 84 or 102 minerals in my stuff because I know that guarantees I'm taking in toxicity. Mm. So I like Jacobsen salt personally. They do a water process to clear the salt they get from microplastics and forever chemicals, and it's the cleanest salt I know of. So I have a couple rules on salt. Bright white, 1 ingredient, and then you salt your food to taste. Also knowing that if other people are looking at you as you're taking in a crazy amount of salt, they look at you and they're like, whoa, you're probably taking in too much. If you're salting all your water all day, you're taking in too much. Like nobody said we need to salt our water all day. In my diabetes presentation the other day, there was a consistent thing that diabetics took in more salt than everybody else. Like too much salt is a problem. Too little salt is a problem.
Yeah.
We give animals salt licks, assuming that they can self-regulate. But we as humans, we tend to overdo things. If we like fat and sugar and salt, we tend to overdo fat and sugar and salt because we like them.
Yeah. You just mentioned two simple steps. One was drinking good water, taking good salts. What else can we do?
So potassium is huge.
Yeah.
That's the third electrolyte. When people are toxic, especially with things that we work on, vitamin A toxicity, copper toxicity, vitamin D supplements, which we do not ever use, deplete your body of potassium. They cause you to waste potassium and lose more potassium. So potassium is the quickest thing that people can do that will often change how they feel drastically in terms of their energy, anxiety, depression. If you have trouble falling asleep initially at night, you probably have some toxicity, but potassium may help that. Headaches.
Where do we get potassium?
Oh yeah. So one last thing though, if you tend to get very tired very soon after you eat, that's a good potassium deficiency sign. So the best food sources of potassium that we tend to use are we really like bananas, Coconut water, we're trying to get low vitamin A sources of potassium. So bananas, coconut water, well peeled and well cooked potatoes, white potatoes, not yellow potatoes. And we don't want to eat those too often because they are a nightshade, but they can be very helpful. We do things like making what I call 50-50 salt, which is a half and half mixture of potassium chloride and sodium chloride, which is salt, and then a little bit of
what about sweet potato?
Sweet potatoes are what color are they?
They are, well, reddish.
Orangish reddish.
Orange
So no,
reddish,
absolutely. Those would be some of the worst vitamin A foods you could eat.
Okay. Yeah, because everyone's saying eat sweet potato.
Right. No, we definitely actually I used to in my CrossFit paleo days, I was eating tons of sweet potatoes and carrots, and I would put frozen spinach into everything. And it was, I mean, I have poisoned myself with vitamin A practically every way I could in different, whether it was plants, whether it was foods. There was a point where I was eating raw liver and blending it with frozen blueberries and making smoothies out of it because I thought it was good for me. Like I've done it with supplements. Like this is, people don't realize that they are just compounding this problem and with all sorts of ways. And then let's say one of the key things to absorbing plant vitamin A is to take it in with fat. If you take vitamin A from plants or animal sources with a lot of fat, you will absorb more of it than if you didn't. Way more of it. So you got people doing like sweet potatoes with butter. Two vitamin A sources, a big source of fat, and then they wonder why they slowly start to feel worse over time. And they're just storing it. There's things that you can do to maximize or minimize your storage of vitamin A. So the potassium is really, really important. We have fairly limited sources. We do use potassium supplements if we need to. Like I use a potassium citrate from a company called Micro Ingredients, which is non-GMO. A lot of citrates out there or citric acids are made from genetically modified black mold, and we don't want those. So we get non-GMO if we're going to do that. So those are the three big minerals. Those are the three electrolyte minerals that I focus on. The three big minerals, we have zinc. The best food source of zinc is red meat. No contest. People who do not eat red meat are going to have a zinc deficiency. It's just the way it is. We do supplement if we need to. Then there's selenium, which used to be fairly easy to get from Brazil nuts. And I can tell you that the Brazil nuts today do not have very much selenium in them because they've been growing them in the same place over and over and over and over and over again. And we collect all the Brazil nuts and it's kind of like a forest. Like they grow them as they just let them grow out in the forest and they just collect them. So if they're not putting selenium back in the soil, you keep taking all the Brazil nuts out of the place and there's not going to be any selenium in the soil left. And I've seen this on hair tests. So we do supplement selenium as needed. And then the last one is molybdenum, which is a mineral that almost nobody knows about. It's absolutely critical to multiple detox enzymes, critical to fixing both iron overload and iron deficiency. The fact that molybdenum used to be considered so important in soil science that they would measure the molybdenum in the soil and then they would calibrate everything else to the molybdenum. That's how important it was. And now we have nobody talking about it. Molybdenum used to be fairly easy to get in beans. I would watch on hair tests, and if people ate a cup of beans a day, their molybdenum would be good. This doesn't work anymore. So I'm watching in real time the nutrient values of food go down because I see so many hair tests, and I have people who have been with me for years. And all of a sudden I see this trend. Like I've seen aluminum going up on hair tests. I used to be able to get people's aluminum down, and people who have been with me for years, who have been doing the same thing for years, all of a sudden their aluminum on hair tests is starting to rise. Most people are going to, claim the trails across the sky are the cause of it. And maybe it is. I can't change that. I can't make that go away. So, but the things we can do, like magnesium is very helpful to detoxing aluminum. Okay. And almost everybody's deficient in magnesium. I have a whole live stream on topical magnesium for people who want to go check that out. It's one of my favorite episodes. So we work on those. And then the last thing that we work on is flush niacin or nicotinic acid. That is the only form of niacin I endorse. That is the only form of niacin I use. It is technically, it's not a vitamin. It's an amino acid. It's derived from tryptophan, which is an amino acid. So niacin is not really what you would call a vitamin. It's an amino acid, and it is critical to your body making what's called NAD, which is the gasoline for most of your detox pathways. So if you don't have that, you can have the parts like selenium and molybdenum help run ALDH, which we talked about earlier. That's the aldehyde dehydrogenase that helps detox like things like alcohol and retinol. So selenium and molybdenum are like, think of it as, I do a lot of car analogies. Selenium and molybdenum are like the parts of the engine that you need to run the engine. And then flush niacin is the gasoline to run the engine. You need all these parts to make things run well. And we have a whole section in the Love Your Liver program about how to dose flush niacin, how to buffer it, how to use binders, how to do all these things to make things, as smooth as possible. If people out there are listening and they just run out and take a bunch of flush niacin and you get a strong flush, and that's on you. We have a 6-article section in the Love Your Liver program about how to start and how to proceed with flush niacin. So if you go out and you do it on your own, you went out and you did it on your own. Just because I mentioned some words doesn't mean I'm responsible for what you do with them. So those are the big, like, kind of the 7 nutrients that we focus on, and that's how we're doing these crazy things with people to get them fixing diseases that they've had for decades.
Indeed, a lot of people are suffering from these issues. And my personal view is that there is such a lot of fake news on nutrition. People are just confused and they don't know where to go. And I think you are a person to go to. You're obviously very knowledgeable, and you do a lot of online consultancy as well, I gather.
Yeah. We've had clients in 29 countries so far. We can help people. The hair test we can do pretty much for anybody in the world. People who are outside of the US do have to get their own blood tests. I can work with people who are unable to get their blood tests, but the blood tests are pretty darn important. One of the things that makes us different than other people is we do look at zinc and copper and technically iron in both the hair and blood tests. So we get 2 angles on it.
So our listeners can send the results of their blood test and a hair sample to you, and you would give them an overview of where they're at.
Yeah. The easier thing is if they're able to get them through us, that just makes the whole process much more streamlined. Absolutely. But if they are in other countries, the key thing to do is just to contact Julie, admin@nutritiondetective.com. And she's the consultation arrangement master. She handles all of that stuff. So yeah. And we have there's myself. I have another practitioner named Nathan. We're about to fully announce 2 new practitioners who I've trained myself. And then we're going to be starting doing the seminars for anybody who wants to take them on how to read hair tests and blood tests like I do.
Okay. And we'll post those links in the show notes below so that people can connect with you. I want to acknowledge you for the good work you're doing. I think this is so important to keep people healthy, because if people are healthy, they are happier, have more from life. So thank you very much for being on our show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure to be here.